I am now speaking to you from Tokyo, Japan, which is where I currently live. For the time being, who knows? And I just wanted to make some videos again. I just came back from Korea. That's where I used to live. That's the most pressing thing on my mind because it's really fresh. I meet a lot of women, sometimes women and girls, a lot of black women who are like, oh, you went there, wow, wow, and they feel like they can't do it. There are a lot of fears because black people have to deal with anti-blackness, and people are crazy and like will try and hurt you because they are sick and they hate black people. And so a lot of countries black people are afraid to go to because they're like, will I be harassed? Will I be murdered? Will I be found in a ditch? Nothing like that happened to me in Korea, obviously, but I just wanted to talk about Korea because before I moved to Seoul, I watched a lot of videos on YouTube by black women because I wanted to see what their experience is like. And a lot of them did express or did mention racism, but not in a way that was severe enough to deter me from wanting to go. Especially coming from America, where it's legal to murder black people in America. So coming from that, I was like, oh, okay, well, it seems like some people are douchebags, but you can find your niche, I guess. If you read my blog that I wrote after I was there for a few months, like I read that and I'm just like, oh, you dear sweet summer child, like I was so high off of like being in a new country, and I really like when things are new, and I really like when there are things to be curious about and discover. And I was like, yeah, I'm in Seoul. And I actually didn't go there to teach English like a lot of people. I went there to go to university. I was attending Seoul National University. And what initially made me want to go there is because I'm a filmmaker as well as a musician, and I'm constantly looking for ways to make more films but also earn money making films. Like I just like being on sets, and I can do all that stuff because I had to do all that stuff for myself on my own projects. So, and like the New York City film industry is so fucking racist. And in Germany it was the same thing. Like you always hit a racist, sexist ceiling. I like a lot of Korean films and I like a lot of Japanese rock music. So I was like, well, how about I live in Korea and work in the film industry to make money, like daily, to live my life? And you won't make bank, but I mean, I'm sure you could make enough to like live. Well, I wasn't sure, but I thought like possibly. Then I was like, oh well, Japan's just a hop, skip, and a jump over, so I could just go to Japan and like play shows and stuff. And so that was my plan, like learn Korean to get into the Korean film industry, to make money as a crew member and work my way up to director and writer when I learn the language, and then pop over to Japan for shows because they have the largest fucking music market in the world. So why wouldn't I? And that didn't work because I was so shocked and appalled and traumatized by the rampant anti-blackness in Korean culture. And I didn't even know because I had no context. Like I grew up in New York City, but I can't say that I had a ton of Asian friends growing up. I I mean, I went to the School of Math, Science, and Engineering, so I knew me some Asians, but outside of the classroom, like we didn't hang out. And I did occasionally in my life have like hangout friends that were like first generation Asian American girls, um, but not many. Like predominantly my friends were black girls. I just didn't know how much Asian people rely on feeling better than black people to feel good about themselves. Um, it was really shocking to me because like with white people, like how white people benefit from white supremacy, about white privilege, about colonialism and slavery, that everything that has built their society comes from the blood of people of color, like the land and the resources and the labor are all resources that are stolen from people of color. And without white supremacy, this system of exploitation could not continue to exist. So that's why they like it. Plus, there always are like shitty people who like feeling better than other people. I didn't have a lot of experience with Asian people. The only experience that I got was shortly before I moved to Seoul, and I was looking for jobs because I needed to save money. And I was tired of working for white people because they were just so horrible and exploitative, and I just never want to have a white boss again because they're evil. It's like they can't be in a position of power over you without abusing you and like reverting to the plantation. Like, and they assume that because you're black, you're desperate and you need money, so you put up with anything. And so they just abuse you. And I was just tired of being abused. I was like, fuck this, I'm not working for white people anymore. So I started looking for jobs where my boss would be people of color. The only people that really wrote me back were like Asian businesses, Asian owned businesses. And like I worked on a lot of food trucks because you make a lot of money. Sometimes you can make cash and you can switch your hours around with people. Like it's pretty flexible. You get to be outside. And so you can make good tips. And so all the food trucks, like there are not a lot of black food trucks, and if there are any, they didn't respond to my resume. So the ones that responded were like Asian-owned businesses, and so that's when I started working and dealing with a lot of Asian American people and Asian people in general. And most of them were racist as fuck. And I was really shocked by that. I was like, really? And another thing I was shocked by is that like we grew up with the whole model minority thing. Like we know how others are treated. Like I know how I see Asian people being treated, and to me it always seemed like they were seen as like the house pet. You know, like the good, like the black people are like the bad dogs that are like out in the yard, and the Asian people are like the good dogs who are inside the house because they behave. Like that's kind of how I interpreted that. And I never really meet Asian people or Asian American people who are actively anti-racist. Like racism doesn't seem to bother them or factor in to their experience at all. Or at least they never express it. So I just always assume that it's because white people treat them better, because white people view them as like well behaved. And then when I started working around Asian people and Asian businesses and stuff, and I started seeing the way that they interact with white people, I was like, white people treat Asian people like shit. Like they're not, like they're so disrespectful to Asian people. And I was really shocked. And I'm just like, they treat you like shit too. So why aren't you mad? Like I don't really get that. But I was just really surprised at how much racism that Asian people deal with because I had never been around Asian people, so I just always assumed that they didn't have to deal with that much, which is why they just never seemed to care or stand up against racism. So I was shocked by that, and I was shocked by a lot of racism that they had towards me as a black person. And this was when I was on my way out to Korea, so I was kind of like, well, I don't want to judge people based on douchebags that are the same color. But then, like, when I was dealing with people at Seoul National through email, when I was dealing with people in Korea through email, they were bitches. So I'm just like, I was getting worried. I'm like, is this what I'm going to be dealing with? And I didn't want to think because I had invested so much time and so much energy and so much money applying to programs and blah, blah, blah. I was dealing with a lot of negative treatment from people even before I met them, just like through email. And they knew that I was black because you need to send your picture for everything to Korea to get anything. So I went to Korea, and at first I was like, okay, all right. And then it just progressively got worse and worse. Basically, my experience in Korea was this. I've never lived in a city or country or culture that was more sad. And I don't mean sad as in I pity them, sad as in pathetic, like literally like sad, unhappy, the opposite of happy, miserable. In my experience, generally Korean people are so unhappy, sad, miserable, self-loathing, bitter, nasty, needlessly bitter and nasty. Needlessly bitter and nasty. Like, you're like, why are you being nasty right now? It's like so uncalled for. But it's just like, some people just use any opportunity to be nasty. And that exists everywhere, but it's not like here. Like, New York is friendlier than Seoul. You know, and people try to talk shit about New York, but at least in New York, like, you can be online and you can be laughing with the cashier, or you can be like, and I'm not talking about reservedness, because like I understand reservedness, you know, some cultures are emotionally reserved. It's not about Koreans being reserved, which they are emotionally. It's about being mean. and nasty. And no, it's not just their culture. Like, you shouldn't just accept people who mistreat other people because it's quote unquote part of their culture. That's bullshit. It's just a disregard for the thoughts and the feelings of others, especially when that other is black. They have no respect for black people whatsoever, and they have even less respect for black women. The way that I was treated there is appalling and disgusting, and still to this day makes me so fucking angry. And I was supposed to be there on a long program, and I was actually thinking of completing my degree there at Seoul National, and I got the fuck out. And I would have got out sooner, but my landlord and his wife were really nice, and they wanted 30 days notice, so I gave them 30 days notice. If it was not for that, I would have gotten the fuck out immediately. I was talking to an African woman there who had been there for a long time, like even like before the 2000s. And she was talking about how, like, nowhere can an African go where they'll be welcomed. Like, no country can an African go and people will be happy to see them. But Africans are all over the world and they're making moves. They're going to school, they're go working. You know, a lot of Korean companies recruit Africans, like companies like Samsung and everything. She had known a Cameroonian woman who had been recruited by Samsung to come and work, and she was so diligent and did so well that she was promoted to like a boss. And so the Korean people had to, and hierarchy is everything there. So if you're the boss, that's a big deal. And so for these people to have to like defer to this African woman pissed them off so much. They were so mad, and they did everything in their power to sabotage her and make her life there a hell, all these Korean people, because they hated having an African woman boss. But she was good and she did her job, so what could they do, you know? So, but yeah, Korean people are mad as fuck when it comes to like black people excelling at anything. And I just don't even know where this hatred of black people comes from, because they're simultaneously obsessed with blackness. As a black woman, the fetishization of black women is disgusting. The way Korean men treat black women is disgusting. Like, literally, like, they feel like you're a prostitute. They feel like you're a black woman, and so you're a prostitute, and they can come up to you and like touch you and say disgusting shit and stare you up and down, like the grossest behavior. It's like, you're so disrespectful. Like, what are you doing? But they think that they can do that to you because you're black, and they wouldn't do it to a Korean woman or even a white woman, you know? And white women have their own reputation in Korea, especially Eastern European white women, but I mean, at least it's assumed that Eastern European white women are prostitutes because there are a lot of Eastern European prostitutes, or there have been. So that's where that comes from. But most black women who go to Korea are like professionals. Either they're going to school, or they're teaching, or they're doing something. So there's no history of like black women prostituting themselves in Korea. They just have this link in their minds that black women equals like less than, and you can demean and degrade them because they're not people. I could be standing there in a nun's habit making the sign of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit, but as long as they see black skin, they will come up to you and try to touch you up, because they just feel like that's what black women are. And that's what I've experienced there. And it's just so gross. It's just so gross, and it makes me so mad. It's like, who do you think you are looking at me like that? Just go to the grocery store. Like, people would just be like they literally are like not even hiding it. And that was like on this like the softer side, you know? Like, the first night I went there, I arrived at night. My flight arrived at night, and the place that I was staying, the manager was like a younger guy. He was like 27 or whatever, and he was showing me around because I didn't know. I just got there, and I'd never been to Seoul before. And so he was like showing me around places to eat because it was a college area. So he was like, yeah, you can get some like, bibimbap over there, which is just rice and vegetables, because I'm a vegan, so which is hell. And I mean, it depends on where you lived, but I lived in Guanacu because I was going to Seoul National, and it was nearby, and there's like nothing vegan around there. So difficult. So we were walking together, and he was showing me around, and I found this with other men as well. Like when they see you with a man who is a member of their race or ethnicity, they then feel that it's open season on you. And walking around with this Korean guy at night, just like there was nothing, like he wasn't even walking close to me. We weren't even talking quietly like you talk, like just like, oh yeah, there's that and there's that, and just hanging out and just showing me stuff. But just the simple fact that I was walking with him, these Korean guys were staring at me like whatever the Korean equivalent is of put me on a plate and slap me up with a biscuit. That's how they were looking at me. And I'm just like, the fuck are you doing? Like, it just made me mad because they don't act that way to Korean women. They don't. Like, they're Korean women who don't shake hands with men because they feel creeped out that the man just wants to feel their skin or something. They're Korean women, like, people go on dates with a girl and her friend. Her girlfriend comes along on the date because, you know, guys gotta act right. This guise of propriety is so prevalent there still. And yet you think you're going to look at me like that? Or you think you're going to come up to me and try and touch me? Or you going to come up to me and say gross shit? It just makes me mad. Like, it would make me less mad if they were just shitty guys who were gross to women. But it's not. It's like they're gross to black women. But if I were a different woman, they would show me respect. And that makes me want to puke in their faces. I mean, if you're a black woman and you're like, oh, well, my man's Korean and he's a, well, I mean, okay, like everybody's different, but like I have my experience and that's what I experienced. Like Korean dudes are aggressive as fuck and really rude and disrespectful. That's what I experienced. And all they want to do is fuck you, and they don't see you as a person, and they don't care about your thoughts and feelings because for all I know, they don't even think you have any. That's what I experienced. So if you experience different, you're welcome to make your own video, but I ain't gonna lie about this. And I feel like I need to be blunt about this stuff because like the anti-blackness in Korea is horrible. Like I couldn't deal with it. And I'm a pretty strong person. But the thing is, like, I'm used to American racism, which is not overt anymore. Like, they will shoot you and they will murder you, but they'll make up shit like, oh, you were selling loose cigarettes, so that's why we murdered you. Or, oh, we didn't know it was a toy gun, that's why we murdered you. Oh, you were walking and you had a hoodie on, that's why we murdered you. Oh, you were just breathing, that's why we murdered you. Like, they will not say, we hate black people, that's why we kill you. White people in America try to mask their racism, but that's not how it is in Korea. Like, it's overtly racist. Like people, like it's like down south kind of shit. I'm like, do I need to have like a green book to eat in Korea? Because literally me and my black friend went around all night trying to find restaurants and they were miraculously closed when we walked in. One time, the guy told us that we were closed, but he forgot that the sign with the opening hours was on the door. And then he started like rambling and stammering all this shit. And we were just like, you know what? Whatever. I mean, like like, we won't serve you, or we will kick you out. We got kicked out of a 24-hour coffee shop, and we were the only ones that got kicked out, and we didn't even expect it. Like, we were like, it was like 4 in the morning or something. It was in Hongdae. And we were just hanging out talking, like everybody. And then out of the blue, like this Korean manager comes out and is like 5 more minutes, like in English. And we didn't think about it, you know. But then we were like, wait, isn't this a 24-hour coffee shop? And then we were like, wait, did he only tell us to leave? How come he didn't tell? Because there were other Korean people there too, just chilling. And when we were packing up, like they were staring at us. And when he came to us, he came and there were like 2 guys standing behind him. I found that when people are trying shit, they usually bring backup. And I think that's what that was. And we went back because we were like, fuck this. Because this was the same night where we were being turned away from restaurants, like left and right. And we went back and he didn't come out. He was in the back. And he didn't come out on purpose. But then a Korean couple came in to buy something, so he had to come out. And when he came out to serve them, we approached him and were like, why did we have to leave and they didn't have to leave? And before, when he came up to us to tell us to leave, he was speaking English, but now all of a sudden he can only speak Korean. And I was like, oh, okay, bitch, I've been here 10 months, I can speak Korean, bitch. And so I said, I said in Korean, like, why did we have to leave? Like, who are all these people? Like, why are they still here? And he was like, oh, well, they're the janitors. These two young guys sitting at a table in plain clothes, drinking coffee, are the janitors. And I was like, okay, well, they're janitors. Who are those people over there? Oh, they're leaving. When are they leaving? Later. I was like, you know what? We just left. But like that kind of shit, like people just trying to fuck up your day. Like I don't know what was in his mind, but just we were just two young people. We drank coffee, like we paid money, but he's like just to, that kind of shit, you know? Or another thing, like the place that I used to shop near my house, I shopped there because they were big and they were cheap and they had vegan stuff. Like they had like almond milk and stuff like that. But I would shop there and they would be overtly racist to me. Like they would charge me for shit that I didn't want because they thought that I couldn't read Hangul, and because like the price come up on the screen, but they thought that I was stupid or I couldn't read, and so they would charge me for shit that I didn't want, trying to make money off me. They would not pack my bags, yet pack other Korean people's bags. They refused to pack my bags to the point where I would just be standing there, like looking off, because I'm like, bitch, this is your job. You better pack my bag. You know, like what kind of shit is this? Like you're the cashier, but you don't want to pack people's bags because you don't. You can take my money as the cashier, but you don't want to pack my fucking bag like you'll pack that Korean bitch's bag right behind me. Like stuff like that, just being really rude and nasty. And it got to the point where I was just like, my Korean at that point wasn't good enough when this started happening to like complain. And so I went to my landlord, who's the nicest guy. Like these people, it's like an older couple, maybe like 50s, mid 50s. I don't know. You can't tell with Asian people just like you can't tell with black people. But I think they were like mid 50s. And they were so nice and helpful to me. And I went to him and I was like, these people are mistreating me. Can you help me? Here's the number. It was on the top of the receipt. Can you help me and call the manager? And I'll tell you what I want to say so you can explain it to him because these people are mistreating me. And I told him what happened. And at first, like a lot of Korean people, they try to deny that it's racism. I don't know why, because they know this culture hates black people, like they know it, but I guess they just feel like pretending like you never noticed that everybody's treating you like shit. Um, but then I was like, well, no, because in this specific instance, in this specific instance, in this specific instance, like it's not just shyness, it's not reservedness, it's like rudeness and it's like dubiousness, and they're doing this stuff on purpose. And so he was like, yeah, okay, I'll help you. And I was like, okay, I'm just going to go up to my room for a second. I'll come back down to your office and we can make the call. And then when I went back down to his office, he was like putting on his shoes. And I'm like, what? And he's like, okay, let's go. And I'm like, go where? And he's like, going to the supermarket. And so he walked with me to the supermarket. Like, it wasn't super far, but like, he's like the manager of like the building. There's so many people there. Like, he has so many things to deal with. It was the evening. Like, he had other shit to do, but he came with me and he walked with me and he went and we walked into the supermarket. And we were trying to look for the manager, but we couldn't find him. So we went up front to like the cash wrap where the cashiers were. And then he looked at me and was like, okay, which one is it? And I was like, that was pretty gangsta. I wasn't expecting that. But he was like, which one is it? And I was like, oh, well, one of them isn't here, but I think the other one at the end, yeah, that was her. That was one of the like, bitchy ones who hated life and decided she wanted to take it out on me and my groceries. And so he was like, he kind of like made a note, was like, okay. And then we went and asked somebody, and they finally found the manager. And we went out to the back with the manager, and he just told him everything. He was like, you should treat people the same. Like, she lives in my building. I'm here, supposed to look out for her and stuff like that. Like I said, my Korean wasn't good at the time, but I could still pick up stuff. And actually, I think the other guy was. The manager was trying to gauge how much that I could understand because he asked me in Korean if I could understand, and I answered him back in Korean that I could, but not much. And so I guess at that point he kind of was like watching what he was gonna say. But yeah, he just my landlord just spoke to him and set him straight, and then the manager actually gave me his card, and he was like, if they ever treat you like that again, like call me. And that was that. And then these cashier bitches, like the next time I walked up, were all like smiling. I'm like, the fuck you smiling at, hoe? The only reason I shopped there is because they had lentils and they had almond milk and they had vegan breakfast cereal, and I love me some breakfast cereal. But it sucks that you have to choose between like your pride and integrity and like sustenance. Like you can't, like like I couldn't, like sometimes, like especially my first semester, because like I said, I was taking intensive Korean, I was taking all this stuff, and I would come out of class sometimes like late at night, and I would be hungry, but I didn't want to cook anything, but there wasn't anything vegan, so I'd have to go to the store, but then I would have to be like, well, I mean, is there going to be any racist fuckery? Because I just don't want to deal with it. I'm too tired. It was a 50-50 chance. Maybe you'd meet a racist piece of shit, or maybe you'd meet somebody who would actually just pack your bag and let you go about your life, you know? And that's no way to live, you know? Like, it was just no way to live for me. That life in Seoul is just not life. The life that people are living there is not life. Like, all you care about is if you're pretty, if you're skinny, if you have white skin, if you have money, where your apartment is, what your parents do, and what university you graduated from. Nothing else matters. All this shallow fucking bullshit matters. And like people are just so miserable and bitter. Like they're so unhappy. And everybody just gets fucking blackout drunk every night to deal with it. And it's like, I mean, now I'm like, well, it was kind of ridiculous of me to go to like the alcohol consumption, suicide, plastic surgery capital of like Asia and think that I'll have a good time. But I just wasn't thinking of that. I just wasn't gonna like judge a place. I had never been there before. I didn't know any Korean people. Like I'm the kind of person, if I'm curious and I want to know about something, I just go and I find out. But I was just so appalled, and I'm still appalled. It was awful. Um, yeah, it's not like everything that matters in that society is nothing that actually matters. And so everybody feels really empty and really unfulfilled, but you hide it because you're supposed to look perfect. Everything is supposed to be perfect on the outside. And everything's supposed to be perfect on the outside, even if you're like literally fucking dying inside. You have to be like, and that's fucked up. It's fucked up. And I mean, there are echoes of that in every society, but like, I've read somewhere online that Korea was described as a country of extremes, and it's very, very true. Like, you can experience shallowness in your society, but it is extreme. Like, everything is extreme. Nothing's a little bit salty, it's super salty. Nothing's a little bit sweet, it's super sweet. Nothing's a little spicy, it's super spicy. People are either evil, like pure Korean evil, or the kindest people that you've ever met. I was at the gym, and the gym is like right across the street from my house. But like at this particular night I went, it was like a rainstorm, raining really hard. And I didn't know it was gonna rain, so I didn't have anything. I just had my hoodie, I had shorts, t-shirt on, and I was going home. And Korean stoplights take like a billion years, so I was there waiting for the stoplight with my hoodie over me, like trying not to get drenched, but it wasn't working, obviously. And then I feel somebody. I walk up to the corner, and then there was like a family and like a older woman, like how many there. I guess it was her and her granddaughters. And I didn't pay any attention. They looked at me, but like people in Korea are always fucking staring at you. So at that point I was just like, whatever. So they were staring at me, but I just didn't think anything of it. And I just went and was waiting for the light, getting drenched. And then I feel somebody come up really close behind me, like to like close enough to like touch my back. And I was like, the fuck? Is this some kind of like Korean sexual assault, or like what's going on? Because like I've been dealing with these aggressive ass Korean dudes, so it's like I didn't know what the fuck was going on. And I feel somebody, and I turn around, and it's the old woman, and she has her umbrella over my head so I don't get wet. And she's looking at me with a concerned face, you know, like, and then at that point, the light turns green, and then she goes, Kachikayo, which is like, let's go together. She wanted to walk with me, and she didn't even know where I was going. I could have lived in, like, where I could have lived in 45 minutes away, but she was worried that I would get a cold. And she took her umbrella and was holding it over me, you know? Like, that kind of kindness, like, would never happen. I don't think anybody, anywhere. And that happened to me a couple times. Like, I think I was lost and I asked for directions and it was raining. And no, I was actually in my apartment and I was going somewhere, but I didn't really know where. And I was out front of the building and somebody was coming home. This girl was coming home. And I asked her, and she, I think she gave me directions, but I didn't really know where to go. And so she left. She was coming home, but then she went back out, and I was going out, but then she went back out with me, with her umbrella with me, and took me to where I wanted to go, to like the store. I think I was looking to buy something, I don't know. And then she left me with her umbrella. And I'm like, it's raining. Don't you need this? And she was like, no, it's fine. Like, what? So I was literally meeting like the kindest people ever, but like also the most evil people ever. Like nothing in Korea is just so. It's either you're great or you're awful, in my experience. Either this is great or this is the worst and I hate you. And just dealing with those extremes I just wasn't used to, dealing with the overt racism I wasn't used to. Um, but generally, people don't like themselves very well, much. And it's very common with people of color. It's like self-hate is very common with people of color. But I was been really shocked, like living in Asia, about how prevalent and casually accepted white supremacy is. And it's not even, I mean, if you accept white supremacy, like if you accept that white people are at the top and black people are at the bottom, you're also accepting your place. And a lot of Asian people, even here in Japan as well, they accept their place as they think white people are better. And I've heard a lot of Japanese people, especially Japanese women, say, like, I want to marry a white man because it would make me look better in other people's eyes. Marrying a Japanese isn't good enough. You know, so I mean, if you think like that lowly about yourself, you're not gonna have any, you don't have respect for yourself, let alone black people. And I find that thinking is really widespread over here. And but it like seeing a lot of things really echoed with me in terms of like colorism and stuff. Like, and then it hit me like when I was just like, what the fuck is wrong with everybody? I was like, they're colonized people and they're behaving like colonized people, you know? And it's like I mean, I'm an African, you know, my parents are Africans. And so I'm familiar with African people with a colonial mentality. I grew up in America, so I'm familiar with Black Americans with a slave mentality. So these things are not foreign to me, but I think for the first time, I was not a part of the group that was behaving that way, so I had an objective view of it, and I could stand back and I could see colorism for what it was, you know. I could see self-hate for what it was, and I'm just like, oh my God, is that what we're like? And it was taking its toll on me. I'm the kind of person where like I can't be in a room full of miserable people because like I that energy affects me, and I just was feeling so like I gotta get out of here. Like I was literally not even going outside at some point. And I lived in a closet. Like a goshoan is like I could lay down and my head is touching one wall and my foot is touching the other wall. And I wasn't leaving because I just didn't want to deal with people. I just didn't want to deal with it. There was one time that I was in the subway and I was like, there was like a screen on. It was advertising something, and the advertisement was some idol in a disco, and there was a Korean person in blackface with a big afro like dancing around. And I stopped dead in my tracks, and I was literally like, "What the fuck am I doing here? Why am I here? What am I doing? Like, what are these people?" Like, I just felt really stupid for coming. It's just like turning on TV. Like, I couldn't even watch TV anymore because it's like you don't know when you'll see some blackface on TV. It's just really bad. It's really bad, you know? So I would just like to say that because you should be prepared for this if you're a black woman. And I see a lot of videos being like, oh, it's just their culture. If they want to touch your skin, let them touch it. If they want to touch your hair, bitch, like if you were in Detroit and Jamal Jenkins was trying to touch up on your hair, would you let him? If you were in Queens and fucking Julio Rodriguez tried to touch up your skin, would you let him? So why are you letting all these Asian people touch up on your shit when you wouldn't even let your own people touch upon you like that because it's inappropriate and it's disrespectful? Like, stop tolerating behavior from other people that you wouldn't even tolerate from your own people. And at the end of the day, it's all about basic human decency and respect. And Korean men know not to touch women. They know not to touch women. And if they do it anyway, they're seen as perverts. So if a Korean guy's touching all up on you, he knows what he's doing. He just thinks he can get away with it with you because you're black or you're just a foreign woman and all foreign women are sluts or something, whatever fucked up shit he thinks. So yeah, if you're a black woman and you want to come to Korea, just be prepared for the racism and don't think you have to accept it. Cultural exchange is just that, an exchange, and you have to meet each other halfway. And if there's not mutual respect, no exchange can take place. So it's not about you going there and letting Korean people do whatever they want to you because it's their culture. It's about you being respectful of their differences and them being respectful of your differences and you meeting each other halfway. And if there are misunderstandings, which there inevitably will be, then be like, you know what, I didn't like that, or like I didn't like, or like I didn't like that. And I'm guilty of not doing that too. Like there are instances where I should have said, like, you know what, like I'm not comfortable with you touching me like that, and you shouldn't do it. And like, why are you doing it? Are you doing it because I'm a black woman and you feel like it's okay to touch us like that, or are you doing it because you're just a shitty person? Like, I should have been more vocal a lot of times. Like towards like after like it really sunk in that this was just some like Korean fuckery and it wasn't like benign and anti-blackness was at its source, then I was like, fuck this, and I didn't give a shit and I was just thinking about myself. And but before that I was too accommodating and I shouldn't have been. But I can tell you to not do the same thing. Don't make the same mistakes I made. But I mean, yeah, like people can be really like they're just inconsiderate towards you because they don't have any respect for black people. And they don't think black people are equals, so they just don't care about you. So if you don't care about you and they don't care about you, then nobody's going to be caring about you. So you have to care about you. And that's all I'm saying. And you don't have to make excuses and accept racism. The whole thing was really weird for me. Frankly, if you asked me to do it again, I would not. I would come straight to Japan. If you're a black woman and you want to go to Korea, I wouldn't tell you not to go because I wouldn't tell a black woman to not do anything. I really feel like you should feel free to go and do whatever you want. But you really need to be aware that you live in a world where people don't value you, and that world is very dangerous. And so if you meet up with the wrong person, it could be harmful to you. So really be aware of yourself and respect yourself and only surround yourself with people that respect you. Don't feel like you can't speak up and say, I'm uncomfortable with this, or don't do that, or don't touch my skin, or don't touch my hair. So yeah, that's what I was dealing with. That's what you're gonna have to deal with. You know, people just completely invading your space and feeling entitled to your body and entitled to your time and entitled to your everything. Like, what? If you want to come here, you have to be prepared for a lot of that stuff. And if you just don't like it, don't like it. Don't think that you have to like it. Don't think that there's something wrong with you for being offended. No, there's something wrong with them for being offensive. You know? And I would recommend another country. Like, I mean, they treat black people so horribly, and I feel really bad for black people who live there. I mean, just a country that treats black people like that, like I would think that there are other countries to give your tourist money to. But if I don't know, if you know, oh, I saw that drama and so I want to go and see where they shot the drama. I mean, okay, but I mean, I wouldn't put myself through that to just go see that shit. But whatever, you know. You know? So, I mean, just think about it. And if you really want to go, go. But go short term. And if you don't like it, get out. And just don't let anybody touch up on you. And you'll hopefully you'll be fine. And you eat some food and go see some palaces, some temples, and try and enjoy yourself. I mean, it's going to be difficult because people are so generally racist. But if you really want to go, just go short term and just think about you and don't worry about the people and just see the things you want to see. Hopefully, go with some friends. If you have somebody, if you need to go out, have somebody who's Korean and speaks Korean with you, to counteract any fuckery that people will try to pull on you. And yeah, that's it. Um, but I would not recommend staying long term. And I don't know how black people live in that country, but I guess it's your home. So like what? I mean, I often think I don't know how black people live in America, but it's all you've ever known, so that's where you live. You know. Yeah. So that's about it. And I'm gonna be putting out some more music this year. So this channel will also have music videos again. And yeah, see you again another time. Yeah, bye.